Welcome to Ancient Geeks, a podcast where two old friends of a certain age talk about the development of geek culture from decades past to the present day. We discuss movies, comics, TV, and the written word. We were geeks before it was chic. And I'm your co-host, Stephen Taylor, and I want the listener to know everything will be all right. You are in my hands. I am here to protect you, and most importantly, you have nowhere to go.
Well, I'm comforted. How about you? And I'm your co-host, TOM-8727, which was the last four digits of my phone number where in the house where I grew up in Southern California.
So this week we're discussing George Lucas's first feature film, THX-1138. Before we do that, Tom, what have you been doing in geekery this week?
I have been reading the Giffen, DeMatteis, McGuire era Justice League issues, which I really enjoyed at the time, and I'm having fun rereading again. And it also reminded me, and I texted you this yesterday,
yes,
just how many really good team superhero books there were from DC during the 80s.
It's true. It is true.
Yeah, and some of the really obvious ones, the Teen Titans,
yeah.
Less obvious ones like Batman and the Outsiders.
That was good, yeah.
It was a good era for team books.
And the Suicide Squad books.
Oh, Suicide Squad, love that.
You're right. So yeah, maybe something to talk about in the future. I've been doing miscellaneous reading, various comics. The current Fantastic Four. Still on that Iron Man thing that I've been talking about, and that James Isley novel that's just bogged me down now, which may give a hint about what review I give of it, but we'll see.
Okay.
Just stuff, and just show prep. Lots of show prep.
Yep. Yeah. So because we're still on the condensed show production schedule because we're both going on vacation.
Right. So when you hear this,
yes.
It'll have been a while since we actually recorded these things, but it certainly plays into it for certain. All right, so as we move in to talk about Lucas's 1971 film, I would ask, what soundtrack would you want for this film if we could afford the rights?
So there was a song I heard sometimes on like classic rock stations, K-Earth 101 in Southern California.
That's right.
It was the song In the Year 2525 by the one-hit wonder group Zager and Evans. And it kept going from like in the year 2525, in the year 3535, in the year 4545. And one of them was like, If Man is Still Alive. So I think that's a good song, not just because it fits the theme of the movie here, but it's also not a very good song. So, which also is apt for what we'll be discussing here.
Not to be confused with the Conan O'Brien riff In the Year 2000.
There you go. Yes.
Which I love that bit because they kept doing it after the year 2000.
Yes.
It's fantastic. Anyway, look it up, kids, on YouTube.
All right, what did you pick?
So I picked Foreigner's I Want to Know What Love Is.
Yes.
I want you to show me. I also wanted to pick the THX Zoom sound that comes on because THX became
right.
what I think about when I see those letters, the sound system that Lucas helped develop. Anyway.
Right. Obviously, the name of that came from this movie.
This film. So,
right.
And I want to go ahead and say we're entering into, as we've been doing lately, kind of little thematically linked episodes. We're going to go through some of the early movies of key filmmakers. And this week it's George Lucas for the next about 3 episodes. It'll be Spielberg next time. But how did you encounter this movie, Tom?
It's hard to remember. I know that I didn't watch it on VHS. I watched it before the VHS era.
Okay.
Which means, since it came out in 1971, I don't think that I saw it when it premiered. Mm-hmm. My guess is either I saw it at a science fiction convention, where movies were screened regularly,
right,
or at the Balboa Theater, which was this eclectic movie theater. Things changed every couple of days.
Right.
You'd get offbeat movies like this one. So one or the other, but I don't remember which one.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think it was it ever released on VHS? I don't think it was.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Because based on the research I did, it really wasn't made widely available until 2004 when Lucas released his director's cut, which is what we watched.
Yes. Why was that, do you think?
So no, I did some reading about this actually.
Yes.
So it's if you apparently one the studio execs hated this movie,
Yes.
and so they weren't all that keen on it being out, and Lucas kind of locked it down too until he finally had, as Lucas does, and we'll talk about this later, had
Yes.
the opportunity to sort of futz around with it and add CGI effects and do different things to it.
Yes.
Then it got released in '04 on DVD and on Blu-ray. So I don't, as I recall what I was reading, I don't think it was available anywhere else
No.
prior to that. And so
And you hadn't seen it before now.
no, I had not. This is the first time I saw it was this week when I sat down and watched it for the podcast. I was aware that it existed. Again, kind of like a lot of things. Kind of like we talked about when we talked about the serials, and like I knew these things, like maybe in a Starlog article or something like that, I would have read a reference to it. Weirdly, in my head, maybe it's because of the robot or android cops,
Right.
but I thought of it in some ways. I knew the difference, so don't get me wrong. But in my head, I kind of would occasionally confuse it with Metropolis. The old, because of the golden robot in Metropolis, because that like echoes C-3PO, but then I thought somehow this was an homage to that because of the androids, I think, some stills I'd seen, but I have forgotten that Robert Duvall was in it, which is kind of a big deal, really. Anyway, I didn't really know what this movie was about until I watched it.
But it's important for us to say why we're covering this movie, which is we're going back to the first movies made by big name directors whose movies we've enjoyed. So Star Wars, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, any number of movies, Close Encounters, you name it, and John Carpenter. And so this is the first in the series to go back and see, where did George Lucas get his start as a geek movie maker?
Right. So here it is.
Here you go.
Here we go. So I don't want to overly dwell on the plot, but I do want to give a quick rundown, and we can, if you want to stop and talk about certain parts of it now or later, it's fine. But in basic terms, right, this is a dystopian future, right, about a sort of totalitarian. It has a world that has some elements of A Brave New World and some elements of 1984, where humanity is like clearly, and if enslaved is quite the right word, but it works, right? They're all same. They're all the same. They have shaved heads. They wear white clothes. Their names are reduced to numbers like THX-1138 or LUH-3417 or TOM, whatever the heck you were. EIEIO, but regardless, and they all work in these sort of almost like they're human machines. They're monitored by other humans who can kind of keep track of what they're doing and why they're doing it, and they're all controlled by drugs. Drugs are a central theme of this, right? That people are taking these drugs and it controls them. It reduces their libidos. It just creates an entirely zombified kind of humanity, right? Living in this sort of dystopian city.
Well, it's very Brave New World in that sense, with Soma. And so it really, like, the story follows the typical track for a dystopian tale, which is you introduce the society and what makes it awful. You bring things to a head at some point where the situation's unendurable for whatever reason, and then there's a resolution at the end. So it is a very straightforward, simplistic sort of 3-act kind of structure to this movie.
So the movie kind of boils down to three acts or three pieces, right? There's the awakening, where THX-1138, played by Robert Duvall, and LUH-3417, played by Maggie McOmi, are roommates, because you're assigned roommates, and they both stop taking their drugs, and they start the required drugs, which is a crime not to take your drugs. In fact, there's a whole bit in the beginning about, which I did kind of like this part, which also reminded me of 84, where people would open the medicine cabinets in their apartments, and they were like being monitored, and it would basically ask what was wrong with you, and so they could give you more drugs, and close it and have this sort of impressionistic or abstract kind of monitoring of all the humans this way.
Yeah,
But they stopped.
it's a very bland dystopia. There's
Yes.
not malicious elements like the 2 Minute Hate in
No, no, no.
1984, or other things that we've seen where there's people who are doing a little bit of mustache twirling, who are in power and so forth. It's just everybody
No,
is kind of reduced to blandness,
Yeah,
and everything, as you said, everything's white.
everything's white.
Yes, I mean everything is stripped down to the bare essentials. Like
Yes.
entertainment is just there's a channel where you're seeing one of the robots hit somebody over and over
Yeah.
again. So that's the action movie channel apparently.
Yeah.
There's a news channel, but there's not much information in the
No,
news.
that's right.
There's pornography, just of naked people dancing.
Yes. By the way, was that the inspiration for the itchy scene in the Star Wars holiday special?
Probably. I had not made that connection.
Oh, it's
That's
right
pretty
there.
brilliant.
Um. Anyway, yeah, it's I don't know if this is true or not, but I read something. I think it was a analysis movie. That was the first depiction of channel surfing in film. I don't know if that's true
Oh,
or
that's
not, but
interesting.
it is kind of. It might be.
But having specific channels for
Yeah,
different
he's flipping through the
kinds of
channels
content. Yeah.
And all that stuff looks kind of like the holograms from Star Wars, but I think part of that's Lucas coming back and futzing with it later.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. And certainly so a lot of the ways in which Star Wars like played with the video being grainy
Yeah.
when you were watching somebody on a screen, or the audio having some distortion if something's being transmitted to
Yes.
another location. Anyway, there's a lot of that in this.
No, I do
movie.
think, and that's why it's somewhat relevant that he names the sound system THX. I think the sound design of this movie does influence later work rather considerably.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's actually good. I mean,
it is
I
good.
think so
That's
the best part of the movie.
Part of the best
maybe.
part of the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, they stop taking their drugs. Then at some point they get arrested for doing this because they also have sex, which is against the rules.
Right.
And she becomes pregnant. There's a whole side story that I didn't put in my notes because it doesn't make total sense to me, where Donald Pleasance's character, SCN, I didn't write his number down.
Sen, just say Sen.
Sen, like, wants to become Robert Duvall's roommate for some reason and reports Lou to the authorities, and they eventually all get arrested. And apparently,
Well,
also
he's breaking. So Sen is also breaking the law.
Yeah, he's
because
breaking-
he's messing with the computer programming that
that's right.
runs the city that they live in, so that he can choose his roommate and do other
Right.
things on his own. And he kind of emerges later as a wannabe revolutionary leader.
Yes. Now, I did read something that some of that was re-edited to make his role more prominent in this version than the first version. So I don't know if that's part of my confusion. I'll be honest, I kind of didn't care what his motivation was. So I was like, just can we get on with it, please? I mean, in simple terms,
Well,
it's this,
yeah,
right?
I don't remember him being that prominent a character when I saw it long ago, and that just might be that my memories have been erased. But I don't remember him being a big deal.
In simple
first
terms,
watching.
right? We have THX and Lou who are in trouble for not taking their drugs and having carnal relations, and then Sin's in trouble because he's manipulating the computer, and they all get arrested eventually.
Right.
Although Lou, I guess, gets killed because she disappears and we never see her again. And then they get thrown into this. You watched John Oliver, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you watch it during the pandemic in the White Void?
Oh, definitely,
So
yes,
they get thrown into John Oliver's White Void from the COVID years or months.
yes. That's that's the prison.
Yeah. So the prison is this big white void, and they're in there with other people, and eventually they decide to walk out and they escape, and they run into a hologram, which made no sense to me either, played by Don Pedro Colley. And
Whom you remember from Beneath the Planet of the Apes?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he was the mutant who was making
Yes.
the two astronauts fight each other.
That's right. And they eventually escape, and then if I sound bored in my recitation, there's a reason for this.
So you've been taking all those drugs that are
it's all those drugs.
prescribed by the authorities.
If I took the drugs, I'd like the movie better, I think. Isn't that the way it works?
Maybe.
So then he finally escapes. There's a big chase scene with cars that made no sense to me, which he eventually then crawls out onto the surface, and the end. So
Well,
It's
so can we
no, we can come
rewind?
back, please, please.
Okay, so I just
That's
want to
just
call
a
out
broad
the
brushstrokes.
white void part of this, and maybe I'm getting ahead of us a little bit, but
That's fine.
there were moments in this movie that were imaginative to a point,
Sure.
and that was one of them. I mean, it has
Yeah,
sort of like
yeah,
a Severance-like feel to it.
yeah. It
You
does.
know, it's just these completely bland, in interiors, and then the white void is that taken to the extreme.
Hmm.
We find out, I think, importantly, that anybody could have just walked out of it at
Yes.
any point. It
Yes.
seemed like an infinite void, but of
Yes.
course that's impossible. So at some point they figure out, oh, well, let's just get out of here and
Hmm.
see if we can find the edge. And they eventually find a door and they get back into the underground city where everybody lives. And it's also like where you get an insight into what the society thinks is deviant.
Hmm.
So,
Yes.
there's a blind person there, doesn't seem to be
Hmm.
guilty of anything else. There is Sen, who is kind of like a posturing little wannabe Che Guevara.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I thought that was actually one of the more interesting parts of this
I
movie. I just
agree.
wanted to
Well,
call it out before we bleeped over it
no,
and
no.
moved on.
I was gonna come back to some of that, but I'm glad you brought it up. Then, I mean, again, I
Hmm.
think we'll just say, well, again, as you say, it's a pretty straightforward dystopian tale:
Yes.
awakening, arrest, escape, and with the commensurate chase
Hmm.
and the ambiguous ending. And this is a very bland totalitarian society. We don't know why it's this way.
No.
There, I will say this: there's an attempt to make it into some kind of capitalist hellhole, but it doesn't deliver on that in the following sense, in my opinion. It
Yes.
talks about buying and consuming and the importance of all that, but nobody has any material anything. So where is all this consumerism that's supposed?
Right.
These announcements in the background, right? And it's almost like it's ambient noise, but they talk about buying and all that kind of stuff. But there's nothing to buy. I see there's no stuff anywhere. Even the
Right.
food they have in prisons looks like little sponges.
Yeah.
It's
Well, Sen
it's
is
kind of odd.
also an economist, we find out. Like,
Oh yeah.
so he's talking to kids. Apparently, a lot of education is kind of fed intravenously through
Hmm.
some sort of
Oh, that's
milky
right. That's right.
fluid. And, he's talking about, well, in the old days, I had to be, hooked up to this big tank for weeks, where you little whippersnappers just have this little, cylinder on your
Right.
arm that's feeding that to you, and you can walk off and do whatever you want.
I'm glad you said that because I kind of drifted away during that part of the movie.
But
I
another
do.
interesting,
Yeah.
another part where you see the kind of the homilies to consumption is when the main character THX goes into a confession booth, which
Yes.
has this big
Yes.
picture of Jesus on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and probably the worst chatbot ever. It's
Yes.
clearly a computer
Right.
generated voice that's just randomly playing
Yeah. Yeah.
questions or exhortations as he's talking. It has nothing to do with what he's saying. It's just saying, "Well, give me more detail."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sort
That's right.
of,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like Deanna Troy on
what
her
you
bad
should
day.
right. What you should do is buy more.
Yeah.
Buy,
Yeah.
buy. It's
Yeah.
a lot. It's a lot like I remember like back in the old days when I had an Apple II computer and I was learning how to program. I had in BASIC how to create the Eliza chatbot.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
The
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
the psychotherapy chatbot. It was exactly like that. Exactly like
Yes.
that.
Agreed. I have liked this movie, unlike our previous episode we talked about Last Crusade. I didn't take any screenshots. I did from this one. There are some interesting visuals, although I have I'm of mixed minds on
Hmm.
that. So he's in kind of like a phone booth with glass doors. And you
Yeah.
can see this sort of image of Jesus and Robert Duvall's character THX-1138 in silhouette. It's a kind of a nicely blocked scene, but I also the way in which Jesus' eyes kind of looking through the window, it made me feel like a Terry Gilliam Monty Python and the Holy Grail
Yes, it
graphic.
did. Yeah.
And so it's almost comedic in that sense when it's not supposed to be.
Right.
I know the budget was low on this film, but still. I did like the white void scenes. Actually, you're right. Not only is there the most character stuff in the movie,
Hmm.
such as it is, we'll come back to this, no doubt. I did find the vast white void scenes to be interesting visually in
Yes.
ways that other things were less so to me.
And very reminiscent of a British TV show where the punchline is that we are all imprisoning ourselves.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Mhm.
Fair point. I did not find the car scene, which is interesting. They filmed them, as you may or may not know, right? That was they were building BART tunnels.
Yes.
That's where they did the scene. So it does look futuristic in a sort of interesting way, but I just didn't care. Like, are we
Yeah,
just going
it
to
was
get
sort
this
of
over
seemed
with?
randomly thrown in. Like, why did they have in this future society Formula One race cars?
Yeah. And the
That was the
car looks
only
cool and all.
other than the motorcycles that the
Yeah.
police robots had.
Yeah.
They were the only vehicles that we had. They're incredibly cool,
Oh yeah.
but I don't understand why they're there.
Yeah.
And
And I
and
don't want
they're more
them.
and they're even more than Formula One. They apparently like have some sort of like jet engine component to them.
Yeah, they were just
Yes.
crazy. Anyway. All right. So let's
But
so
it's
we
part of like but I think in a weird way, and I don't know if Lucas intended this. There are little elements of the movie that are showing that things don't make sense and are kind of falling apart
right.
in this dystopia. So it
Yeah.
has sort of like an IKEA level cleanliness and plainness to
Right.
a lot of everything that you're looking at. But occasionally, you'll see spots where things aren't working, or they're terrible industrial accidents that shouldn't happen.
Right. No, I mean, they're in the, so there's a short documentary on Golden Flicker about this, which is worth watching.
Yes.
Although I think it's a little more superlative about the film than it deserves. But I did like the discussion about Lucas's notion of it should look used because we didn't all, the future didn't just get bought, right? The future is
Right.
stuff we used along the way. When you see the future, it should look like it's been utilized in some way. So, I mean, there are certain things about it visually that I found interesting or appealing, but not enough to fully justify the film. So we can get
Yeah.
into
I
this
mean,
more.
it would have like if it had been a half an hour
Maybe, yeah, yeah,
TV
exactly.
episode, it would have been, I think, a lot more effective. But after a while, the blandness gets to you.
It
I'll
does.
say that.
So let's just talk about grades. I think we'll get into some of this, why we think this. So what's your overall grade for this movie?
That's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, I would give it maybe B minus or C plus.
So this is exactly what I wrote down. I put C plus slash B minus. And the only reason I would kick it into the B minus range is that it is ambitious. And I think it deserves some credit for that.
Yes.
But it's not. I'm going to hold the question of rewatchability for a moment, but I have thoughts on that. I'm not sure it fully succeeds, or it succeeds. Some of the goals I think are problematic, right? But
Yeah.
it fits the way Lucas wants things done. I mean, I wrote a quote down because again, I wrote a quote down from the documentary thing. It was an interview with Lucas, and he said, "My vision was not to do a normal story. I wanted to do something abstract. Well, you succeeded at that. I'm just not sure that that was the right goal, right?
That's good for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it has some interesting takes on dystopia.
Yeah,
Yeah, as I said, it didn't have like the sort of the malign face of dystopia. It was this
sure.
very administrative
Yeah,
version of dystopia, which was kind of interesting. But that's about all it had.
yeah.
I mean, again, you don't have a lot of character development in this movie. You just have the main
Oh no,
character
no.
suddenly not being drugged and then realizing, oh my God, I'm in trouble. He gets in trouble and then he escapes.
Oh, here's the other quote that's even better in some ways to capture what he thought he was doing. He said, "quote
Yeah.
He wanted something that was quote extremely visual, that had no dialogue, no character, that sort of thing." Well, kudos to you, Dr. Lucas.
Right.
Mr. Lucas, you did create something with very little
It's
dialogue.
alive. It's alive.
So
Yes, as it's because it does feel a lot like an experimental film.
yes, it does, and I think yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
very
mean,
art. It's very art house in
yes,
what
that.
art house in the 1970s, early 1970s.
Well, it's the art house. It's the. If you're going to make fun of art house, this is what
Yes.
and it feels pretentious in a way that I don't think it deserves. credit for in that sense. So, anyway, I understand what he was trying to do to a point. He kind of succeeds in some ways on his own terms, but ultimately, the overall, I think C plus is a better
Yeah,
grade.
you talked me into that.
I
C
taught
plus.
myself into it. So
Yeah.
screenplay, what do you give the screenplay?
Uh, Again, B minus, C plus.
I gave it a C. I don't think I think the screenplay is in some ways a source of a lot of the problem. But again, if you judge him on his own criteria, maybe it succeeds. And it's going to lead me into a thought about Duvall's performance here in a minute. But I also found it hilarious. And so just hilarious to me. Perfect.
Yeah.
Lucas said in that documentary that Coppola, when he read the first screenplay draft, said, you really can't write a screenplay. I'm like, I think Francis is onto something there.
I know that is maybe the best discovery out of this this exploration of THX-1138 that we've done. That early on in his career, someone told him you can't write a screenplay, and he
Not just
agreed with
someone.
them. Right, Francis Ford Coppola, and Lucas agreed with him.
Yeah, and he went and got Walter Murch.
Yeah,
who does
Mr. Jack of all trades. My God.
Yeah,
all the things
he's an
Walter
impressive
Murch
career.
did. Yeah,
but really, I think it's still telling that of the things he did, and he did write up the screenplays, but he was also an editor and a sound editor.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, screenwriting was not his top thing.
No,
which I think plays into this.
Well, part of the problem is there's not enough of an idea here to stretch out to a feature-length movie, even one that's only 90 minutes long.
Yeah, I agree. So, C. I give it a C. Direction. What would you give direction?
Here, I might actually raise my my score. I think from an editing standpoint, there are lots of problems with this. From a directing standpoint, maybe a B plus as
I gave it a B plus.
Yeah,
I gave it a B plus. No, there's some interesting things in the movie.
Yes,
and there's some ambitious attempts at visuals that I think deserve some credit.
Yeah.
By the way, the editing, I'm glad you said that because I meant to mention it. Well, I was going to mention it at some point, so I'll mention it now. The assistant editor on this movie was Marsha Lucas, was Lucas's first wife.
Right. Who just
and
passed
she
away.
recently passed away, on 27th of May of this year. And she edited American Graffiti, Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and a couple of Scorsese movies. 3, actually. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Taxi Driver in New York. So I just thought that was an interesting footnote, especially she just passed. I noticed it before we did this.
Well, and I thought, so go back to Lucas's direction. There were some impressive moments in this. So aside from just the visuals, like the void, like a lot of like the oscilloscope and other overlays of things, the way that I think for example, like he was clever to get, I guess Lawrence Livermore Labs let him film on location, and they did the scenes where THX is working the machinery and putting the atomic rods into the robots. But there's one scene that really stood out for me on this watch, and that was where THX is in detention. So THX is in detention, and he's somehow hooked up to some devices that can do something to cause him pain. They're not really torturing him. Right. It's just that they're playing with his metabolism or something. And so what you see him on the floor from different shots.
Oh, yeah.
There's an overlay of some sort of electronic display. And there are these two people talking in this just completely detached way about, you can't let that go over 4.7. No, come on, you're not listening. You can't let that go over 4.7. Well, if only... Anyway, so these two guys are talking. Meanwhile, their actions, whatever they're fiddling with, are causing THX enormous agony.
Yes,
and that was, I think... Yes. Yeah, they're kind of controlling his body movements in some way, too. And I thought that was one of the most horrific dystopian moments in this movie.
Yeah, that was well done. Yeah.
So anyway, good direction. Good direction.
Yeah. So acting. Let's talk acting. So Robert Duvall, what would you give Robert Duvall?
A B. He was okay.
So I gave him a B minus.
Okay.
And again, partially because I keep being influenced by who I'm grading. Robert Duvall's a great actor. There's nothing about this movie that makes me think he's a great actor. I will say this, though.
Yeah.
So conversely, though, again, watching the Golden Flicker documentary, And there was some interview with Duvall talking about how he was directed, or how the goal was to be like, I can't remember, I don't think I wrote the word down, but that he was supposed to act this way. So in some ways, maybe he deserves an
Yes.
A because this is what he was supposed to do, right? Because he is totally detached, totally abstract, totally boring. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, you
You know what
never
I mean?
see him happy. You never see
No,
him. You kind of get intimations, and this is where I'd still stick with a B.
no, I'm not.
Intimations of
Yeah,
emotion about Law or Lou
yeah,
or
right.
whatever the right pronunciation of Luh is. So there were subtle moments of his acting
Yeah.
that I thought were pretty decent, but not his best performance.
Oh no. I mean, I'll stick with the B minus, but I'm not being facetious when I say that he may have actually delivered exactly what Lucas wanted.
Yeah,
In that sense, he deserves better than a B minus. But it's
yeah,
okay. So La or Lou again. I can't remember how they said it in the
yeah.
movie now. Maggie McOmi. I gave her a
Here
B.
I gave her a C plus, and
Okay.
so according to the documentary, we learned that she was a stage actress, and this was her
Mm-hmm.
first movie, and
Mm-hmm.
she was very stagey in the way that she performed.
Yeah.
I mean, unlike Robert Duvall, she did have more noticeable facial
Yeah, she
expressions,
did. Yeah.
more, kind of more overt ones, which felt out of place a bit. And I
I
don't
can
know,
see that.
her acting was decent, but again, too stagey.
And again, maybe I'm confusing different manifestations of a
Hmm.
performance.
Yeah.
Since she did show some emotion,
Hmm.
I felt like there was more of a character there with Duvall. But again, maybe
Yeah.
Duvall was doing exactly what he was supposed to do.
Right.
So I think that's why I gave her a slightly better grade. But your point's well taken.
Yeah. And also, by the way, it's not helped for her that there's so many close-ups.
Yeah, there are a lot of
This is a
close-ups.
movie of a lot of close-ups,
Yep.
and the fact that she does come from a different acting background then shows even more.
Yeah, that's fair. So Donald Pleasance as Sin.
I gave him a B plus.
I did too.
Yeah. I thought when he was being this sort of weird stalker guy who was
Yeah.
trying to manipulate the system to have a new roommate, and you
Yeah.
didn't know where he was coming from, and then we find out later that he is this wannabe
Yeah.
revolutionary but very bad at it, and he
Yes.
quickly abandons his revolutionary pretensions.
He does. Yeah.
I thought he was really good in handling that particular character, which I think would be tricky.
Yeah, I think he did a good job with what he had, and also, and
Yeah.
I think partially why I gave him a B plus is that this is like he's the only character in this movie that feels like a character.
Yes. Well said.
And then
Well
Don
said.
Pedro Colley is the hologram. I gave him a B.
I
Probably, I
gave him
just
a B because the hologram is the most lively person in this movie.
that is true.
Yes.
And of course, I don't understand why is he a hologram.
Well, he's like a solid light hologram, like
Right.
in the holodeck on Star Trek.
No, I understand that, but I
But he
mean,
walks around and talks. He gets hungry, which isn't really
but why is he a hologram? What is
explained.
the why couldn't he just be another dude? What does it
Yeah.
do for the film, the movie, the story? I don't understand. Again, it doesn't matter in many ways. It seems like a random thing to do.
Well, it's like the society is so terrible that even the hologram you see dancing on one of the
Yeah,
channels walks
right.
out of that artificial life to find something else.
Maybe so.
We're going to
And
talk about
then
Ian Wolfe.
you got to say Ian Wolfe. I give him a B plus because he's Ian Wolfe. He always has a certain kind of gravitas.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the geek deep cut
Oh,
here
of
is this
course.
is Mr. Ataz from
And
Tomorrow is
Septimus.
Yesterday. Yes, that's right.
He's
So
in
he's in two
Trek,
episodes
two Trek
of
episodes.
the original series. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Mr. Ataz,
Oh yeah, yeah. Grumpy Mr. Atos, the grumpy
Mr. A
librarian.
to Z,
It's great. Yeah. Anyway, cinematography. What did you give cinematography?
A minus.
I did too.
Especially for a young director like this, it's pretty impressive.
No, again, there are interesting visuals, and there is an attempt to do something different that I appreciate. But
Yeah,
sound,
A.
me too. It's the best. As we said, I already said, it's the best
Yeah,
part of
it's
the
the best
movie.
part of the movie. Definitely the best part of the movie. Very impressive. Very impressive.
How about special effects?
So this I can't give a grade, and this is where I'll hold off all my comments about the quote unquote director's cut here. But You
Right.
can't tell
No,
unless you
yeah,
go to the article that you sent me that went shot
yeah,
by shot through what was
right.
changed, or there's a video version of that I found on
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, yeah.
If you watch this movie as is without those references, it's impossible to tell what
Right.
were the original special effects and how good they were
Yeah, so I
because
gave
of
it an incomplete.
yes. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. Well done. This, there were some good stunts.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Oh,
that
the
when that guy,
motorcycle.
the motorcycle accident was quite
Yeah.
real. It wasn't a dummy. That guy was really thrown.
No, that's a
Poor
great story. It's
stuntman.
also
Yeah.
from that documentary that Lucas told the guy, when you fall down, don't move so you won't ruin the shot. So he crashes and they think he's dead. I mean,
Yes.
they actually, and so they'll rush up and then he doesn't
Yeah.
move. And then he finally says, well, why'd you ruin the shot? Because he was fine. But it looks,
Uh,
anyway, soundtrack.
I don't know. It's almost like there isn't a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the Bach piece at the end and
Yeah. I wrote
occasional
down C
incidental music,
minus, but
but
I think I'm going to go with a D. There's just, yeah,
yeah,
I had the same thought when I
it's
was
not
watching it.
there.
Like, there's some music, but, and especially after having watched 3 John Williams scored movies in a row,
Hmm.
and then getting to
Yeah.
this one, holy cow. Okay, so I have this question.
Yes.
So, is this movie dot dot dot? And I've got four things, and we can go
Okay.
down. So, is this movie entertaining?
Not really.
I don't think it's entertaining.
No, it's so long at
Yes,
90 minutes for what material is there. I mean, he did the 15-minute student movie, and I
we'll
said
talk about that in a minute.
half an hour would have been probably maybe a little shy of what it needed, so maybe 40 minutes. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's not 128 minutes. I'm sorry, an hour 28 minutes worth of content.
Is it thought provoking?
Marginally, so
Yeah.
again, I felt a little bit impressed at this take on dystopia
Mm-hmm.
that it was so bland. Uh, but otherwise, I've seen lots of dystopian movies, read
Yeah.
dystopian books. It
Right.
didn't add a lot to this dystopian canon.
Agreed.
And
Is it,
but again, that's sort of it's that sort of complete indifference those guys had in that one
yeah.
scene when he's experiencing excruciating agony. I
Right.
mean, that's sort of an Eichmann in Jerusalem sort of moment, the
Mm-hmm.
banality of evil of the system.
Yeah.
Whatever you think of the people, the system is pretty terrible.
Is it interesting?
Not really.
Is it
Nah.
rewatchable?
God no.
So here's
No,
your
no,
challenging question
no.
for the day. Would you rather rewatch this or Temple of Doom?
That is so hard. I guess I would watch this again.
So I'd rather watch Temple of
Again,
Doom.
I the stereotypes in Temple of Doom are
Oh, they're
impossible to get
terrible.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a stone in my shoe. I just, I don't know. I'm on the fence about that one.
I can at least, I mean, I agree with you about the stereotypes, and I can at least watch Temple of Doom if I'm just watching an action adventure movie, a not very great one. This is just, I don't know. I found this
Well,
really
okay,
difficult to
so
get
I'll
through.
I'll say it's Temple of Doom because as much as I really hated the stereotypes in that, I felt like Spielberg and Lucas should have known better. However,
Yes.
there are older movies and even more contemporary movies, to be honest, but there are definitely some older movies where there are stereotypes where I can still enjoy the movie while I'm
Hmm.
cringing at the stereotypes. Temple of Doom is so hard because of all the reasons we talked
Right.
about Kate Capshaw's terrible performance and
Yeah.
all the stuff with the kids and that's what makes it particularly tough. It's not just the
Mm.
stereotypes, but it's not 100% obvious which one would be more rewatchable.
So my next question is about standout scenes. I've already mentioned the things that I like the medicine cabinets. I like the
Yes.
void. And of course, the Omni Chapel made me think about Terry Gilliam. Those are things that stuck in my head.
Hmm.
Anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention before we move on to my next 2 questions?
Yeah, I mentioned just kind of very briefly the way that Sen collapses as a dissident. I thought that was really good because I think there he's somebody in his own mind, kind of left to his own thoughts, who's inflating
Yeah.
himself when he's in the void about how
Yeah.
he's the kind of the master chess player here, and bringing down the system and so forth. And later on, basically the security robots find him sitting on a bench, and he just kind of goes off with them.
Yeah.
Uh,
But he is, again, he's the closest thing to a character this movie has.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Um,
So I just want to mention that scene where he's talking with the kids, the
mhm.
police robots show up, and he just leaves because he has absolutely no idea what to do.
Right.
And
That's right.
there's a earlier scene where he's on that express train,
Hmm.
the tram, and it's also clear that he's out of his depth. He just
Yeah.
doesn't have a plan.
So here's the big question. How is this movie Lu Lucasian? How is this movie I can't say it. Lucasian.
Lucas-esque.
Lucas-esque. That's a better way to put it. How is this
Uh,
a Lucas film?
so very visual storytelling, definitely.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
that's I think that's the strongest strain of Lucasism in this movie. Early Lucasism is the idea of doing science fiction with realistic looking
Hmm.
locations and devices and so forth. I mean that that comes through here, and I think that kind of plays to Lucas's emphasis on production design.
Yes.
That he is, as a filmmaker, not just as a director, but as a filmmaker,
Yes.
he has been really insistent on a particular look and feel to things. That's definitely here. I've got other thoughts, but what else
No,
struck
I mean,
you
I
as
think
being Lucas-like?
I think the thing that makes this deeply a Lucas movie is it's a focus on playing with the technical aspects of the film
Yes.
to the exclusion or to ignore or even not care about
Hmm.
dialogue and character development, even story. That, it's the sound. The best part of this movie is the sound design, right? And the most interesting thing about the movie is some of its more abstract visualizations. But, again, I mean, even again, he admitted he didn't want dialogue and character. The dialogue is terrible in this movie.
Hmm.
It's not interesting, setting aside somewhat Pleasance has to say, but really it's not what he's saying. It's just the way he's saying it that matters, I
Right.
think.
It's an echo of something else,
Yes.
is what it felt like.
And,
His speechifying sounded like it was drawing inspiration, not knowing whether or not he could have been aware of it, but like
right,
hearing like Castro speeches or
right,
something
right.
like that. It's
So it just, and also the thing that made it the most Lucas of all is the fact that the only release we have is something he dicked around with decades later and put
yeah,
things in that didn't make any sense, like those monkey creatures at the end or the CGI spider, things that clearly, there are a couple things that I'm like, when I was watching it, I was like, well, was some of that in some of the background stuff? Then I realized
right.
clearly it couldn't have been in the original movie. I mean, the budget for the original movie was $777,000. It's 777,777.77. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But anyway, that's
Because he thought it was a lucky number. When Coppola went for the budget, he said, "Hey George, guess what? If
yeah,
you
it's
think
all
seven's a
sevens.
lucky number, we can't lose."
That's right. But the fact that you have to like sort through what's real and what's new, what's added and what's not. It's just that's very Lucas to me,
Well,
right?
it's also very Lucas. It doesn't make it a better movie.
That's right. That's right.
I think that the most that the additions do is intimate more about why this society exists. So
Hmm.
you get, for example, a couple of like weird looking creatures that could be mutations.
Right.
So maybe this is all, all the horribleness is the result of a nuclear war.
Right.
That's often the genesis of older science fiction dystopias.
That's right.
Or they have the people who are living in the tunnels and kind of the superstructure of the city, and they're maybe mutants themselves. They look more like they're little people in
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
original casting, but here, they've CGI'd these sort of simian looking creatures.
Hmm.
but none of that adds much.
No.
Again, it's like getting a little more background on whether or not radiation had something to do with the creation of this society. I don't care, right? It
No.
doesn't
Well,
matter to the
no.
story one whit.
So yeah, my main gripe about the prequels is that I felt like Lucas was more in love with a bunch of digital movie making tools that he was able to play with than he was in
Yes.
telling the story. And so in that sense, this makes this version of the movie in particular, this 2004 release, is just the perfect manifestation of Lucas's the way he approaches things.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
well, I find it more than a little enraging because we're trying to do here a little bit of film scholarship. We're saying,
right,
what was it that you could see in this man's early work
right,
that then was, characteristic of his later work, or
right,
where did he improve on where
right.
he was when he made this movie in 1971? It's impossible to learn from it if you mess it up with a bunch of CGI,
That's right,
putting more people into a hallway who weren't there, or more
right,
workers on an assembly line.
right.
And you CGI those things in, and then you can't make these sorts of judgments about
Well, I
his
even
development as
realized
a filmmaker.
in looking at that comparison that I found, but when I was
Hmm.
first watching the movie, I was watching the title sequence.
Yeah.
The colors remind me of stuff from Star Wars, the
Yes.
original, the green letters.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
added that later. If you look at the original, that's not the color that he used. It's
Right.
just little things like that, or even the holograms. I thought, oh, that's how he learned to do that for Star Wars. But no, he did do some of that stuff in the original, but then he went back and futzed around with it too. So it's not exactly the original version.
And why not
So
let the original
I
version
don't know.
stand? So why not have a Blu-ray where you could buy it with the director's
I don't know.
version and the original version?
Well,
Go forth and
well,
compare to your heart's content.
why haven't we seen the original cut of Star Wars in however many
Right,
decades now? Like they're
right.
finally going to release it, I believe, but
Yeah, and
I
it's
don't
not just
understand.
I kind of feel the same way about Star Trek and the
Yeah, I know you know
CGI and the
I
Star Trek
like it better than
episodes.
you do, but that's
But
fine.
it's
You can get both though.
right. But like, what did people experience at the time? What did they like in the case of Star Trek or Star Wars? What did they fall in love with at the time? How does a director grow? I mean, that's actually I think something important for people who are learning the craft of filmmaking to kind of see someone's development from where they were in 1971 to where they wound up in 1977.
Sure. I mean, as long as but I guess I am not opposed in the abstract to the notion of a filmmaker going back and enhancing, changing, recapitulating their previous work because I understand that there may be reasons that you might want to do that. I just don't like. I never have liked the notion that you didn't bury the previous versions.
Right.
That's the
Exactly.
part I don't like. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't mind the enhancement per se. I wouldn't mind that he had another cut of this. That's fine, right? I mean, we watched. Oh, here's a great example that I think we both probably don't have an objection to. There are multiple versions of Blade Runner.
Hmm.
I think some of those actually the one we watched may be the superior version to the
I think
original.
so. I think it is. I think it is.
So you can but you can at least go back and compare. I think sometimes you
Yeah.
can do these things and it's perfectly fine. Lucas just seems to have this weird obsession with producing the final version and then erasing the previous versions. I don't understand
Yeah.
why. But it occurred to me too is in thinking about this because I'm trying not to be. We're both being very critical of Lucas. I mean, Lucas did. Star Wars is an amazing movie and revolutionized science fiction cinema. I think that's fair to say. And his contribution to Indiana Jones is significant. These are both
Yeah.
important pop culture moments in our history that I think are worth underscoring. But I think this watching this and then thinking about other things that Lucas has done, quite clearly, screenwriting is not his gift.
No.
Dialogue is not his gift.
Nope.
Character is not his gift. And really, if you think about what he contributes ultimately, it's things like ILM and THX sound. It's the technical side of
Right.
movies.
Right. And again, I think pulling in, we talked about this before when we were talking about in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's good at selecting from a catalog
Sure.
of geek culture that's out there to make a geek movie that is in some ways groundbreaking
Hmm.
because people aren't familiar with these really great elements from the pulps or from the
Right.
serials or from old radio in the case of Indiana Jones. But he's not a highly original mind.
No.
So I mean, and he himself acknowledged that with Star Wars, right?
Right.
The Hidden Fortress, the Akira Kurosawa movie.
Hmm.
You have a storyline there with effectively a princess and two characters who turned into robots.
Hmm.
Or other elements of that story that came from science fiction writers like E.C. Tubb and others
Hmm.
writing tales of galactic revolution against a sinister empire. So it's not that he has great new ideas, but he
Right.
has a real talent for pinpointing what would be good material to bring to the screen now.
Although, I mean, and I haven't looked at his filmography, but I mean, really, but not a long-term career of doing that,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it's
Right,
the two
right,
movies, really. And then
exactly.
he's also better when he's working with somebody else. I mean, Star Wars is a classic by itself, and it always would be, but Empire is in many ways a better movie, right?
Oh yeah, under somebody
It's,
else's direction.
yes.
Yes.
And writing. Again, Indiana Jones was his basic idea, but Lawrence Kasdan and
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg really made it come alive,
Right.
right?
Well,
So
and
anyway.
that's ultimately to me what is so just completely enraging about this director's cut and what he
Hmm.
did with Star Wars, because no movie is ever one person's work,
Hmm.
right? So, like to go to Star Trek, you could say that you like the CGI special effects of the
Hmm.
Enterprise and so forth better, but there were people in the 1960s who had to come up with good special effects.
Yes.
I would like to have their work preserved. I would like to be able to continue to like hop back in the time machine and see
Hmm.
what the original Star Trek looked like without those kinds of I almost said embellishments. That's not what they are. They're replacements. Same thing with with Star Wars, same thing with this movie. I mean, there were people who had to work on the production design who were not George Lucas, who, in many cases were doing their damnedest in order to make that movie look as good as possible, or who did other aspects of the movie, regardless of their role. To erase their work, I think is bad.
Right. I think it's fair.
I can't forgive that.
But that's why I don't put the Star Trek in the same
Right. So when
context.
people say, in situations like this, well, this is George Lucas's vision and he can do what he wants. No, it's not just his vision. I'm sorry. He may be the indispensable man in bringing Star Wars to the screen or bringing this movie to the screen, but other people's work merit respect.
No, I think that's a good point. So let me say one more thing before we get to our concluding question, which is the student film of it all.
Yeah.
By which I mean, one, I think historically, as you've already pointed out, this was the result. The first draft of this, so to speak, was a 15-minute-ish student film that he made that he
Hmm.
won a prize for,
Yes. We
which
should
then
mention
helped.
the title.
Yeah, go please do.
Electronic Labyrinth THX 1138 4EB.
Sure, it rolls off the tongue. But I think that when I watched it last night, because you sent me it's on YouTube,
Yeah.
it is even more than this movie an abstraction, right? It is
Yes.
just a
There's
dude
almost
running
no
around.
story. Yeah.
It's a dude running around. It's THX 1138 because it's on his
Hmm.
forehead, and some of the sort of same kind of dystopian, computer controlled surveillance state that he's running around in. But yeah, story wise, not really much. It is basically the same story of him apparently THX escaping from this society. But that's kind of it. I found it ponderous to watch, even for 15 minutes.
Yes, it was hard. It was hard to sit still for 15 minutes to watch this because it's boring. It's pretentious.
It's pretentious. I understand as a student, but this is also kind of why I think of the student film of it all as it applies to the other movie. I understand what a student film is
Yes.
to a degree. So I understand why it won a prize. I do. And I understand that
Yes.
he was being ambitious in this enterprise. And I don't begrudge the fact that it won an award, even though I find it a little ponderous. I think I probably find most students' films ponderous. But it struck me before I even saw that original student film, knowing that this came, the theatrical release came from a student film. I'm like, this movie feels like
Hmm.
a student film.
Right.
The pretense and the sort of, I'm trying to what's the word I want? Show off what things I've learned or things I've thought about or things I wanted to try with the camera work or the sound or whatever.
Right.
Especially
Right.
the camera work and in a way that,
Or your ingenuity in being able to
yeah,
find the
yeah,
locations, recruit a bunch
yes,
of guys from the Navy to
yeah,
be the cast. Anyway,
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. Speaking of ingenuity and the budget, right? The background extras are all for some kind of weird cult that already shaved their heads.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's one.
For the movie version, not the student film
not
version.
student film.
Yes. Well, I
The
think they
student film
became a
version.
cult. They became a cult.
Well, they were already
They shaved their
something.
heads, so it was
Oh, they
part
became a
of
more nefarious
addiction.
cult later. It was,
Yes.
yeah, you're right. It was an
It
addiction
was
treatment
addiction
thing.
treatment. Yeah, where they
Yeah,
had to shave their heads.
but yeah, it was oops. And then something happened later that was infamous.
Yeah.
I can't remember the details. Anyway, I understand, but again, the student film often is pretentious. It's often over the top in its sort of attempt to impress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's what happens in this movie too. The theatrical release is just really kind of pretentious. But it's worth pointing out, right, that I meant that before. Marshall Lucas did not like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The studio did not like this movie. I don't know who liked this movie, to be honest.
It's an historical footnote
Yeah, sure.
at best.
Which is why we watched it.
Yeah.
So, is there any parting thoughts before I ask the merch question?
Quite a few, actually.
Okay, go
So
for it.
first of all, he made THX-1138. The studio hated it. They wouldn't trust him to make another science fiction movie,
Mm-hmm.
but he made American Graffiti,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really important movie. It was incredibly popular. It kind of created this boom of interest in the 1950s.
That's why we got Happy Days.
That's how we got Happy Days. Ron Howard was in both American Graffiti and Happy Days. Was this a better path to Star Wars than from THX 1138 to American Graffiti to Star Wars than if he had done THX 1138 and then made Star Wars directly after?
Yes. Well, because as I understand it, he realized that he needed to make something that was commercially viable, which is why I made American
Yes.
Graffiti. And I think that played into his making of Star Wars.
Yes.
I think that maybe, and I think I've seen pieces of American Graffiti on TV back in the day, but I've never sat down and watched the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how it feeds into his filmmaking capacity. But yeah, I think that he needed a deviation from science fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think he needed to get out of his own head a bit.
Yes. Until he got way back deep into it later.
Yeah. So the other day I was on one of my book buying safaris and I saw there was a novelization of this written by Ben Bova. And although I did buy the, not novelization, but book that was inspired by Star Lost that Ben Bova wrote,
Right.
I did not buy the novelization of THX 1138.
Yeah,
There's no timeline in which I would be reading that book.
I'm thinking about what I need. I need like a Ancient Geeks murder board
There you go.
where we connect all these things. So you got the Bim Voba line to Star Lost,
Right. We have Mr. Atoz.
the THX, and the Mr. Atoz, and then obviously the Star Wars and Indiana Jones connection for Lucas. Like I said, we have the Toth president of Buckaroo Banzai and Blake Seven for that actor. It will be tremendous.
Don Pedro Colley and Beneath the Planet
Yeah.
of the Apes. It's all connected. It's all connected.
That's right.
I wanted to mention also, so two more things I wanted to mention. One was this the inspiration for Rimmer, the hologram in this movie? Speaking of Don Pedro Colley. So if people don't know,
I saw the question, but
Rimmer
I
is
didn't-
a hologram in Red Dwarf BBC series.
If Don Colley had an H on his forehead, I would say yes.
Yeah.
He didn't.
I kind of think he was.
It could be.
I think he was. And the other thing I wanted to mention was there is a role-playing game that came out in the 1980s called Paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also set in an underground city.
Mm-hmm.
And it's played for laughs. And it's a dystopian society that is... It's just full of internal contradictions. So it's illegal to belong to a secret society, but everybody belongs to a secret society. It's illegal to be a mutant, but everybody is a mutant secretly, right? And part of the fun is trying to conceal these things.
You're in a secret mutant society.
And I mentioned in the last episode, organic humor that kind of naturally arises out of situations. There's a lot of that in that game. If you play the game, it's hysterical potentially,
But not in this movie.
But not in this movie. But anyway, but there is like the entity that's running everything is the computer. Trust the computer. The computer is your friend. But the computer is breaking down, and really things are definitely going awry. Watching this movie, I'm sure there's a connection between this movie and that role playing game. So, also, if you ever get a chance to play Paranoia, it's fun. It's really fun. All right, that's all the extras I wanted to mention.
So, did you have any merch from this movie?
No.
I can't even ask the question with a straight face.
What on earth could you imagine would be official merch from this movie? Like one of their white jumpsuits?
Yeah, white jumpsuit.
Maybe
a pill bottle with candy. I don't know. I don't know.
A bathroom cabinet that talks to you.
There you go. Yeah. And do you want anything? And the answer, of course, there's nothing I want. Although we did come up with the same answer for the possibility.
Oh, the cars.
Like a Hot Wheel car of the car.
Hot Wheel car, an RC car that raced around like these cars. It had the same sound effect.
Yeah, I just want the little one. I don't even want the RC one. I just want a little tiny one because that's as much as I can handle. But no, I don't really want anything from this film. My own white void. No, I don't want that either.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, listeners, we will conclude this week's episode of Ancient Geeks. We'll see you next time.
See you soon. It looks like it's time for us to change out of our white jumpsuits into even whiter jumpsuits, so we'd best be off. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe on the podcast app of your choice. We'd be even more grateful if you'd leave us a review. Or drop us your comments, questions, criticisms, whatever, at someancientgeeks@gmail.com. Look for us also on Substack, where we post daily. someancientgeek.substack.com. We're also on Reddit, Blue Sky, Facebook, and other social media outlets. All content is copyright 2026, Tom Grant and Stephen Taylor. Music by Reversed Image, whom you can find on Pixabay. See you next time.
Let us be thankful we have an occupation to fill. Work hard. Increase production. Prevent accidents. And be happy.